when you focus on solutions and not just reciting the problems, you can find help and you can get things done.
What a legacy, huh?
No program like ours exists without an architect and creator make it happen, and none of them survive without a champion like we have at Congressman. Let's sit on our feet and welcome him to this morning.
Thank you. What a great introduction. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, now. Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you for that very kind welcome. But moreover, let me thank you for the great work that you have been doing and that you continue to do on behalf of the next generation of leaders for our country. Give yourselves a big round of applause for all of the lives that you're changing. Now, there's so much that could be said at this moment. For as we were walking through the roll call of the states, I was thinking about all the states that I visited, all of the young people who I've met, all of the great Gear Up staff stretched across this country. But I also was thinking about my home state, Pennsylvania, and my home city, Philadelphia, because the next time that many of you will gather together, it will be in Philadelphia, and we look forward to welcoming you. Now, the National Board Chair, who's been my table mate this morning, and for all of the board members, and for Nathan, who's done just an extraordinary job leading INSEP. Give Nathan Monell a big round of applause for his leadership, his persistence. Now, a dream realized. If you go back to the moment when we were debating whether or not there would be a Gear Up program, it took place in the House Education Committee. I had introduced the bill a year before. It was finally the moment of decision. The chairman said at that time that he thought that it was a good idea. He wasn't willing to support the bill. He thought maybe if I would settle for a demonstration program in 3 or 4 cities, that maybe the committee could see its way clear to support this. Now, the majority was held by the other team, and they had some viewpoints about education at the time. They had said during the campaign that they wanted to eliminate the Department of Education, and they didn't think that there was a federal role. So I understood that he was in somewhat of a bind. And I said, well, Mr. Chairman, we want to have a vote on this. And I think that everybody thought I had lost my senses, but I knew that if there was a will, there was a way. And we had a vote after some delay. The chairman called the vote, and I remember that not only did all of the people on my team vote for it, but we got enough support among the Republican members of the committee that it was the only Democratic proposal that was passed. There was a big standing ovation from the audience. It was not every day in Congress where a chairman objects to something and you win anyway. And we won not because I was some great political leader, but because this was a great idea. It was a great idea that we would do something to intervene in the lives of young people while the concrete had not yet hardened. That we would grab a hold of them and walk with them from middle school through high school and point them in the direction of college. And that we would do that in all of our communities, not just in rural areas or urban areas or suburban areas, but that we would take young people, and as President Clinton said when he signed it, we would take expectations that are taken for granted in middle-class families and understand that they exist also in working class and poor families in our country. That we want our young people to have every opportunity to live and achieve their dreams. I remember we had a ceremony in the Rose Garden on our march towards success, and we highlighted an effort that had started in my hometown where a teacher had decided to take her life's savings and pay for a group of kids to go on to college. The late Dr. Ruth Hare, and we featured a young man who had graduated from that program and went on to college and went on to get a graduate degree, and he got a chance to introduce President Clinton at the day that we rolled out this proposal to create Gear Up. And it was just it was symbolic to point at a program that already existed in a small little way in Philadelphia as a signal about what the nation could achieve. But it brings us to this moment, some 15 years later, 13 million young people, the largest early college scholarship and awareness program in the country and in the country's history. You deserve the appreciation of a grateful nation because you have taken millions of young people and headed them in the direction of their dreams. And for that, I know all of you get a great reward when you interact with these young people, because I do. But our country also is reaping the rewards, because we know something about what a college education empowers young people to be able to achieve. We know that they're going to earn more than $1.5 million more over their lifetime, on average. But it's not just about making a living. They're also going to be empowered to make a difference. As architects and engineers, as astronauts, as teachers, administrators, as business leaders, both on their job and in their families, they're going to be able to make a dynamic difference, because an education creates that ability for them to not just live their dreams, but we know it changes the trajectory for their entire family. Because the greatest indicator of these life chances as they are discerned by the census is educational attainment. It changes what these young people are going to be able to achieve and what their children and their children's children will be able to achieve. So I want to thank you for all that you have done. Some of you who know me know that I'm fond of saying that the reward for good work is more work. And embodied in what our president said this morning, Nathan, when he was making his opening comments, is that there's still so many more young people who need to be reached. Because as significant of an impact that Gear Up is having, there's still many schools, many communities that still we need to work to create a college-going culture among these young people. And so there's work for us to do here in Washington to say to our country that if you want to cut the high school graduation dropout rate, there's one way that we know, based on the empirical evidence, to do that, and that is to put a Gear Up program in that high school. Because Gear Up creates a certainty that the vast majority of those young people are going to graduate from high school. We know this because we've seen it over these 15 years. Through your hard work, it's been demonstrated. And the College Board and their pitch, they say, well, we have to go beyond assessment. And it's true. Because what we need to be doing is not just looking at what works, we need to be strengthening it and duplicating it in communities all across our country. We need to have a commitment to Gear Up that is beyond the level of funding we're at now. To say that this is a program, as the New America Foundation says, that we should triple the funding of Gear Up, because they said this is the most promising program in all of higher education outreach efforts. And that's not to diminish others. That's not to diminish other efforts, but it is to recognize that you have shown that Gear Up works. And I say you because there are no policymakers, no congresspersons that are running Gear Up. You are running it on the ground, in your communities. And I've seen it. I've been to many of the programs around the country, and I see the excitement. And I've heard many a young person talk about not just Gear Up as another parent, but Gear Up saving or changing their lives. And so there's work to be done here in Washington to strengthen your hand. We need to have more efforts to increase the country's investment in Gear Up. And I think that INSEP has created the appropriate blueprint by creating these private sector partnerships and by highlighting best practices. Because what we want to do is we want to continue to be able to build on this support. Now, I was at Howard University last week for the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act signing, but while I was on campus, I walked by the Divinity School, which is named after Howard Thurman. And Thurman, in his autobiography, credits his entire life and his success, which was just extraordinary, to what he refers to as the stranger at the railroad station. This is in the foreword to his book, and he says that when he was a young child, his family was shipping him off to school, and he was delivered to the railroad station with this old trunk. Some of you might know what I'm talking about. And the latch didn't lock, and it had a rope tied around it. At least some of you a little older know what I'm talking about. And he had enough for his ticket, but the clerk said that under the railroad regulations, the trunk couldn't travel because it didn't have a lock. And he said he sat down at the railroad station, his dreams had been crushed. And he was crying because he was not going to be able to go on to school. And he said this gentleman walked down the railroad tracks. He said he was tall, he was handsome. And he said, boy, what are you crying about? And to make a long story short, after understanding it, he went in and talked to the clerk and said he would pay for the trunk to travel. And Howard Thurman, some 60 plus years later, when he wrote about his life's work, he credited all of what he had achieved to someone whose name he never knew, who did nothing but see a young person who was trying to live his dreams, and he helped them along the way. He didn't wait around for an applause or some special recognition. He just saw a young person who wanted to get an education. And Howard Thurman said he reached into his wallet and he paid for the trunk to be able to travel. That's what you're engaged in. You are doing this work today for millions of Howard Thurmans. That is, creating a way when others may not see a way, so that they can live their dreams. And Benjamin Elijah May said that the calamity in life is not in failing to reach your dreams, but having no dreams to reach for. Well, our young people have millions of dreams about what it is that they want to achieve. And I just remind you that when the late Nelson Mandela, who has left us now, took the podium when he was being inaugurated as president of South Africa after spending 27 years in jail, he said that our greatest fear in life is not in failure. It's not that we're not going to reach our dreams. Our greatest fear sometimes is that we're going to succeed beyond our wildest expectations. We, in this Gear Up effort, have to see that as our challenge, that we can succeed beyond what we can even imagine. We've done that over these 15 years. I can't wait to see the next 15. Keep up the great work, and let's understand that the reward for it is more work. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congressman Fattah. We will be at your back, supporting hundreds of you to go to the Hill this week, talk to members of Congress, and make sure you talk about Congressman Fattah and his leadership when you're there. We really appreciate it when he does for us. I want to also take a moment to pause and say we would never have had this success with Europe if it wasn't for the expert, talented, and committed leadership of James Davis. I want to say thank you so much, James. Please join me in thanking him.